Hello. Hi,
Hi,
nice to
how are
see
you?
you. I'm good. How are you?
I'm so good. I love your background. Is that wallpaper?
It's wallpaper.
It looks good.
I
Oh my
really like it.
gosh.
It's from a place called Burke Decor, and I really, really like it.
I'm so jealous. I love a feature wall. I really do. Because I feel like this is very boring. Like, I basically moved into my house and I have done nothing since I got here to decorate it. And I'm like, it looks like a lonely bachelor lives here, which is not true, but
It's not true.
now's my chance to do it up. Finally. How have you been?
I've been good. I can't believe it's been like a year since I saw you. I think it was
Oh,
Comic-Con of July, right? Of last year.
it feels like 5 minutes ago. If you told me it was last month, I'd be like, yeah, that was last month. Time flies so quickly, I
It
tell you.
really does. I remember you said you got really sick after Comic-Con, like maybe on your travels back.
I got sick both times I went. I got sick on from San Diego. I think that was like no, both times I came back and I was sick as a dog. It's probably just because I'm sure you get like immunities from like what's the word? Like being in your own country in your own area. So you're like, yeah, I'm set up for that. And as soon as you go overseas, you're like, oh, and it's probably also because I just spend all my time in my office and I don't go out. So I probably need to like lick some coins and just, like I had so much strength from my previous job of working at a school because kids are just like germs. And I was like, the first year I was sick all the time. And then after that, I was like, nothing can strike me down, but there lasts so long.
Like, I'm
Uh,
sorry America keeps doing that to you every time you come.
you know what? I've had a good run.
Yeah.
Like the other times I've come clean as a whistle. So I'm like, I had to pay the toll at some point.
Yeah. No, I'm super
I,
excited to catch up with you. Like, I'm so
I know, me too.
always a pleasure.
This is my first interview of finishing Laura Olympus. So I was like, this will be a good one to do
Very grateful.
with.
I'm wearing my Laura Olympus under
Oh, you are.
love the sweater.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh.
So are you wearing something with Greek gods on it or fashion? What is that?
No, it's just little ladies,
Just little
just
ladies in outfits.
just little ladies sitting. Wish they were Greek gods, but
Oh
yeah, they're
yeah.
just little ladies sitting on the fabric. Yeah.
Okay. So let's just jump in. I'm very excited to be your first interview since you've finished the comic, and congratulations on finishing the
Thank
comic.
you.
I love the ending. Josh binged the ending. Like he read the last maybe 15 episodes all at once.
Oh, good work.
So he really, really enjoyed it. He was like, oh my gosh, he never had to wait. So he
I always wonder what it's like reading it like in a chunk
yeah,
because when you do it, you have to like make it for two different audiences where it's like it has to be engaging for people who are reading week to week and you have to make it enticing enough for them to come back and read it. But also it needs to make sense as like a whole for people who just read it as a chunk. And
hmm
I'm always like, I wonder what this feels like in a chunk.
he's always done the binge reading it. I was in this room. He was on that little couch back there, and he was just so engrossed with your ending. And then he like he stopped talking to me about it. So I'm gonna have to put him on the podcast as well because he sent me a voice message to put in the podcast about it.
Oh my gosh, he's so funny. I still remember when he did that. Like the two of you did a podcast previously where where he like left a comment about like what Hades might have been eating in his like takeaway. And I was like, it's definitely pasta. That's what it is. But he's so funny. He always points out those little details, which is very endearing. Yes.
Yes, he's the greatest. It was very funny how he's still talking to me about it. He's like, that ending, it's still sitting with me. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, he
Oh,
mentioned it today too. And I said, I'm going to talk to you. He's like, tell her I love the ending. I really enjoyed it. So did I. He had that chunk experience is working. Like the binging it, it's working. The story as a whole. I reread it all the time, but I still read weekly.
well, tell him. Obviously, thank you to you as well, but tell him thank you very much because the endings are very scary to write. They're very scary things
Yeah.
to handle. Um, I've been a nervous wreck for probably about 12 months trying to work down to the ending. So I'm glad that, obviously, like, not everyone's gonna like it, which is fine, but just as long as, like, some people love it, I'm like, that's good. That's what we go for.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Actually, my first question I wanted to ask you was, you wrote on social media, "I'm done. I finished. Now to cry." Can you take me back to when you were writing that? Like, what was going on for you?
I was really tired. I had been awake for for the past, especially the past 3 months, probably. It's been very much like working all the time. So a lot, like, I don't do this every day. I don't want to be misleading, but like there's a closer and closer we got to like the end of it, I would be like up at 5 a.m., up at 4 a.m., like working all the way through to like 11 p.m. kind of thing, just like trying to make sure that everything was like planned out. And that got more and more frequent like towards the end. And especially like the previous week I was up until like 4 a.m. in the morning, like working on it. And because, I wanted to give it all I had. I was like, it's got to be this, this, and this to get to where I need it to be. So there's a lot of long hours in there. And I think I definitely experienced my emotions either not at all,
Mhm.
where I'm like, this is fine. And I just am, straight faced, or all at once, and I'm like I'm gonna cry. I can't talk about this too much or I'll just cry and cry and cry. But there's definitely, I think, with the other episodes, not to go on a massive tangent, I was like, this is fine, it's fine. And then because I was like, this is the ending, like don't sweat it, like it's not just all one episode that's the ending, like these like 10 final episodes are like the ending, so you just need to think about it as that whole rather than one individual episode. But then I got to like the very last one and I was like, I don't want to make this like just, you know, maybe I'll just never finish and we'll just do that. And it could just be like Schrodinger's cat, where it's like, just has it ended? Has it not ended? Kind of thing. So that last episode was definitely, there was definitely moments where I was like, I have to go and cry a little bit and then come back and then cry and then come back. And like also everyone was very supportive, which I'm like, no, stop being supportive. Just act like it's another day. I'm like, don't just say emotional things to me or I'll get emotional. So it was everyone's very kind. It was a very emotional week. I'm still recovering. I'm like today, I think for the first maybe God, because I finished it on Sunday morning, which is
Mhm.
when I wrote that tweet. And I think the rest of the day I was. Have you ever just like worked so hard that you're just like, I don't know what to do now? Like
Yes.
you can't even just enjoy anything. So I kind of expected that to happen, so it was all right. And I was like, maybe I could play like Baldur's Gate. And I was like, no, it's too complicated. I was like, I can't even do it. It's too complicated. So I think I ended up going on a really long walk. And I was like, that was the right thing to do. And then I just went to bed really early. So I was
Mhm.
like, I don't think I'm going to, because I was going to do all these things. And I was like, they're not going to happen. You're too like emotionally strung out at this point. And then for like the next couple of days, I was like, just have a rest, just get everything together. And I think this week, I've been doing sort of like a life maintenance stuff. I
Mhm.
like got a blood test because I needed to go do a blood test, and I have like a massive to-do list that I've been going through. And today I've been like writing all my thank you letters to everyone. So that was a very long answer to a very short question. Sorry
I
about
love
that.
that answer.
Yeah.
So real what you're talking about, Rachel, especially the part where you're in a daze kind of after
Hmm.
doing it and feeling very emotionally strung out. And I'm curious, and this isn't something we'll know the answer to for a while, but I wonder if it's going to hit you in waves.
Yes.
Like there's probably going to be a wave that comes the next time you usually submit an episode and you don't have to.
Hmm. I think it's going to be like that. Yeah.
So it might hit you in waves. Like I went through the opposite of this, like where things were ending, but I didn't want them to end. Like I didn't plan them to end, like Good Trouble getting canceled after this.
Yeah.
And the other show that I was working on also got passed on, right? So I lost them both within like a week. I was like, oh, so
I'm
like,
so sorry that happened to you. That is really hard going. I totally understand because a lot of these things come in clusters, right? And you don't expect them to.
you don't
And
expect it.
they really knock you on your ass.
It was so
Mm,
weird. I felt fine. When they told me
hmm
things were gone, I didn't cry at all. I started
hmm
crying for the first time about it in April. So life is weird.
Yeah. I get that. I absolutely get that. And I think like for me personally, like some days, like over this past week, I either feel like I've made a horrible mistake or I'm stoked. And it kind of goes between those two things where I'm like, I know that I could not keep making more Olympus right now. Like, I don't want to be like, I have nothing left in the tank in terms of ideas, but just like the making it from week to week and making sure something goes up week to week. I was like, I cannot continue to live life this way. Um, and I think, you know, I think with projects like this, and you'll probably relate to this, is like you know that you can't make any more, but you're also like really sad where you're like, I don't want to stop making it and I love it, but also you know you can't keep doing it the way that it's going. And I think most people understand that.
Yeah. It was a very complex set of emotions that I felt just as a
hmm
reader and a fan of the comic when you said that it's ending and you put that out into the world. I remember being like, "Oh, that's so good. It's gonna have a definitive ending. Like she knows when it's gonna end." And then I also felt really sad, like, "Oh no, this part of my life is gonna be over in a way." It won't ever
hmm
really be over, but the way that we were doing it, with you putting out weekly episodes and me talking about them and da 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 da, right? And then it was also just so complex, just from a viewer standpoint. I can't imagine how you must be going from one emotion to the other. So
Yeah, no, it's kind of, I think you make a really good point there about like, you know, definitive endings and stuff like that. Because I think with a long format story, like I've definitely always had like an ending that I was working towards, but I think I didn't know how many episodes it would take. This is my first long format story. Um, but I think when people kind of get a sense of like they don't know when it's going to end and it kind of just feels like it's going on forever, I think in a way that kind of does the story a disservice because it just feels like, you know, it's just going to keep going forever and it doesn't have, it needs like that finite feeling to it to, I don't know, make it feel like it's worth reading every week. I feel like that's not a good way of phrasing it, but I think there's like a lot of soap operas that I've dropped because I'm like, I feel like it's just going to go on forever. And it's kind of odd to feel like there's no ending to a story that you're reading where you're like, when will I get catharsis? When
mhm.
will we reach the end? I think, especially with something like this that has been running for such a long time and has been something, you know, that is kind of like weekly, except for like hiatuses, it's so strange not to have it happen anymore in a sense just because it's been going for so long. And like I was thinking about it the other day and I was like, oh my God, when I started Laura Olympus, skinny jeans were still okay. I still have my skinny jeans. I'm not getting rid of them because I bought them. But like skinny jeans were still fine. Um Kendrick Lamar's Humble had just come out and Skrillex was still kind of okay. Like Boomerang was still kind of an okay track to play. It wasn't like your most recent track, but it was still, you know, okay. And in promos, what else was going on? Katy Perry was still kind of okay. She was in stuff. I think Rihanna was still making music back then. Like, it's so weird to think about how long ago that was now. And I'm like, oh, I want to go back. I'm like, you can't go back. It's done.
Back, skin
Um,
over.
yeah.
When you announced it at the New York Comic Con, was it in front of an audience and what was that like?
Okay. I'm gonna backtrack and be like, if anyone's like, please announce the ending of a project to a live audience saying, no, it's not a good idea because it ruins the vibe. I'm so sorry to anyone who went to that. And I do not mean to poo-poo the PR people that worked on that because they worked very hard. And I agreed to it. It seemed like a really good idea at the time because um I was like, yeah, you're saying it to an audience and it's a really sort of like grand thing to do. And, it shows respect for the audience. And I'm like, no, it was like throwing a brick through a window. Like, I blame no one because I agreed to it. So, like, this truly went down like a lead balloon to be like, hi everyone who came out to New York Comic Con to come to a panel. Guess what? It's the end. And I'm like, why did I do that? It would have been way better as an internet announcement. Oh my god. So sorry. Have my formal apology, everyone who attended that panel.
You would like to formally apologize to everyone in
Oh,
attendance.
sorry, I'm going so red right now.
That's so
I'm
funny.
like, I'm sorry. I'm one of those people who's so pale that just like every emotion that I have is like boom. But yes, no, I probably would have played that out different. But who's to know how these things will go? Who's to know?
So were they shocked? Like, did you hear audible gasps? Were cries?
Yeah, yeah. And I was like, this was a mistake.
Was that the beginning of the panel or the end?
Such a bad idea. Oh my god. Like, I do get it because they wanted to have it like in a controlled environment where it wasn't like, I'm sure being in the industry, as soon as you put something out there, people will like do detective work and surmise stuff and be like, yes, I'm a private PI and I'm working out what's happening behind the scenes, and I'm like, you're not a PI, stop it. Like, I think had I been left to my own devices, I would have just chucked it out on the internet. Like, I think for a while I didn't even know it was meant to be a secret. And I was like, this is a secret? I'm so sorry. A whole thing. Oh gosh. But no shade to anyone who helped me out though, because we
Funny.
never know how these things will go. Because it sounded like such a good plan, and I'm like, as soon as we hit the stage, and I was like, it's ending, and I heard like, oh, these are meant to be fun, and I made it not fun, and I feel so bad like every day of my life. At least once a day, I think about that poor audience.
It hits you like it's a lot of emotion to know it's ending. So I think
Yes,
people processing that in real time, it might have been a lot,
yes.
might have been overwhelming.
I'm like, you should have let people do this alone in their bedrooms. Oh
That's what
gosh.
it was.
But like I knew like from like a while away, like even when I hit like my third season, I was like, this is the last season because I can't imagine what else they're gonna do.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not saying there'll be no more Law Olympus forever because I'm sure I'll get like some great idea at some point. But like at the moment, I'm like, as like a cohesive story, I'm like, there's just not that much else to do. And like in terms of like side stories, definitely like some of the things I've learned is like you don't need to like do a whole side story for like every character because not everyone wants that. And I'm like, you can save that for other stuff. It's cool.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Do you feel like when you went on certain arcs where we were following one of the side characters, like I remember Minthie's backstory a little bit, like how she got into working with Hades. Did you feel like you
Hmm.
had less engagement during those times, or what do you mean by sometimes people aren't there for the supporting characters having their own story?
I think like Minty made sense to have her. Like I know some people definitely did not want to see backstory for Minty, but I think in terms of like a key character to the story of Laura Olympus, I think love her or hate her, she really was like a backbone for a lot of the drama of the series. So I think in terms of that, it makes sense to provide context for that character. I think probably what people cared less about was probably like the Aphrodite and Hephaestus stuff, where I was like, this is fun and people will like this. And I'll never forget. This is so funny, and I learned such a lesson from this. I have a Facebook for Lore Olympus, and I don't hang out there all the time because it doesn't make sense for me to hang out there. Like I mainly just go there to be like, here's the preview, au revoir. But I think one time I read somewhere someone was like, oh, I really want to know like more of the backstory between Hephaestus and Aphrodite. Like I want to see their wedding. And I'll never forget this comment. Someone was like, no, I do not want to see that backstory. The story is not about like, okay, I hear you.
So opinionated.
I got it. I got it. Okay.
Like,
So like sometimes I realize that people just don't want those like whole like it's a bit of a balancing act because you've got to have like your supporting cast as like a palate cleanser to your main cast. Otherwise, it's too much of something. So you need these other characters to kind of enrich the world that the characters are in. But yeah, it is a delicate balance for
mhm.
sure.
Yeah, I could see that. Like they came here for Hades and Persephone.
Yes, they did.
They made that clear in that comment.
And they're waiting. Oh,
Okay. Okay. So Josh and I have been talking. We're like talking about Lore Olympus as a whole.
mhm.
And he said for him, this is what his takeaway was. And I want to hear your reaction to it. And
Okay.
my takeaway kind of is that the same thing. And he kind of said that Lore Olympus to him is a story of like breaking generational curses and confronting generational trauma. And then it's a love story as well. How do you feel about that? If someone were to
I
say
think
that's what it's about?
yeah, I think that's true. I think the the thing about Lore Olympus to me is the fantasy does not necessarily lie in like the magical powers, but more so someone suffering under sexual assault and then everyone in the universe actually giving a shit about it and taking action. And I think that's the fantasy of it, which is kind of depressing. But I like what you said better though. It sounds a lot nicer and a lot more succinct. But yes, no, it's definitely a story about, it's a love story and it's also a story about recognizing generational trauma and confronting all of that sort of thing. Yes,
Yeah. Yeah. I really liked his breakdown of it. So I wanted to share that
it's
with
good.
you. It was
He's
really
smart. I'm
good.
sure he's got a couple of degrees.
Oh my gosh. Yes, he does. Okay. One thing I'm so excited to talk to you about the outfits. I love talking about fashion with you. And Persephone's sheer, sparkly gown that she put on once Hades infused her with power, I suppose. Can we talk about that? How the construction of it, just go off on the fashion. I loved it.
Okay. So I think, like, for me, I would normally draw a lot of these characters naked because I don't understand why. I mean, obviously, I understand why, but like, to me, like, a goddess or a god would not feel shame in the same way that we would feel shame about being naked. But obviously, the world and also the Apple/Google App Store have feelings about nudity. I have to comply to. So I was like, what can I get away with? Which is, she could be very well naked, just kind of like the nude dress. But I felt like it just sort of encapsulated like the series and the whole visual language that I was going for. She's got like this beautiful stole that's like made entirely from like pollen. So when she drops it, it's like so anyone and close by needs an antihistamine. So it's just really fun. I was like, it just needs to be like the most fun outfit ever with lots of sparkles and just like really old Hollywood. And yeah, no, it's super fun. It kind of looks like an episode of RuPaul's Drag Race a little bit with all the different gowns. I was like, yes, gowns. So many gowns. Yes, no, it was a lot of fun. I got to go in with my sparkle brush one last time, which I really love. Old Faithful. Yeah, yeah, no. I spend a lot of time researching like the beadwork on like nude gowns because there's a lot of nude gowns out there. They're very popular. So yes, it was really fun to do. And I don't know, she just in my opinion, she looks good. So
She looked really good.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
loved it. And Hades was so little compared to her.
I know he was so little.
Little Hades.
Yeah.
And also Hera's dress. when she came
Mhm.
back.
Oh yes, that was one where I was like, I want her to have something like a little bit more modern looking, but it needs something to like. You kind of run out of dress options where you're like, I want it to look, grand, but you can't have all of them be like full length. So I was like, I'll just have a really long bow glove, and that will, be the piece of the outfit.
It was great. I felt
Yes,
like I was
yes,
watching the Met Gala.
so fun. Oh my gosh.
And then Helios goes against his brother, and
Hmm.
curious if that homemade birthday card that Persephone delivered, like, was that did that put
I
it in her corner? Yeah.
I'd like to say maybe a little bit, but I think in general, like a lot of their generation of gods doesn't like him, and they're like, we're willing to fight him because he was such a pain in the butt like the first time around. And he probably talks too much, and they're like, we don't want to listen to you talk more. You're better as just a silence guy, thank you. But I love the idea of thinking about like all the baggage that these other characters have that you can invent in your brain, but you don't actually necessarily need to put on screen, which is super fun. Well, I think it's fun.
Mhm. I think it was really
Yes,
fun. Yeah.
thank you.
I also think that's hilarious that, like, Ornos, you've talked too much. He does talk a
Talks
lot.
too much.
He came out,
Yeah.
let me just start talking and not stop.
Just bossing everyone around immediately.
Yeah. It was interesting too, now that you're talking about that. He was cutting people down like he was cutting down Rhea, and
Hmm.
when Gaia showed up, he started stuttering for the first time. It
Yes.
got really nervous.
She's big and reborn. No, that was I think probably if I had more episodes, that is something that I'll probably go into more with details on like Rhea and stuff and like that sort of because you kind of don't imagine these characters knowing each other, but of course they know each other from a very long time ago, and he was probably very mean to her. Um, so if she kind of like listened to him for a second, and I think, again, that would be nice to spend more time with that, but how long is a piece of string?
I know.
Yeah. I'm like, I could just keep going and going on all the finer details of every single character, but I'm like, I don't know if people would appreciate that so much.
You could
Yeah.
go for a long time. It was a healthy
Hmm.
cast of characters. You had so many people. You could have gone for like another 6 years, I think.
Oh man, yeah, I could have. I was like, oh
I'm
no,
glad you didn't
there's
because
so many characters. Uh,
there's so many characters that they could all have a backstory, but there comes a time where you call it and you're like, it has to end though.
yeah, there was gonna be some stuff with like the Furies and Aphrodite because they're cousins slash sisters. I'm fairly sure, like they're made from like the same stuff. Like Aphrodite. I won't bog down the podcast in details about that, but that was something that I was like, that would be fun. And there was like a few other plot lines I probably would have liked to included with like the underworld and various humans that come down to the underworld and stuff like that. But I'm like, that could be like a bonus story later on, I think.
For
Yeah.
sure. And I would be
Hmm.
there reading it for sure.
Yeah.
There were so many full circle moments,
Hmm.
hitting the ground twice. And even seeing, the family of four that we ended on with Persephone just giving birth to another baby. I mean, birth, whatever way that they do it, but having another child. And did you reread your comic to be like, I'm gonna do this moment, I'm gonna like call back to this, or how did you get to this place where there are so many full circle moments for us to look at?
I think when I did some of those things originally, I was like, oh, I definitely like have a basket of things where I'm like, it would be good to include this again, obviously. Definitely like for instance, like the thing with like hitting the ground twice again. Like obviously like Hades doesn't necessarily come back because of that, but it's just kind of like a well-timed thing to have that, ties the story together. Um and I like just having that business card in that pocket for all of those years. And Hestia had the coat for so long and then she like gives it back. Because originally I was like, does she need to get the coat back? I'm not quite sure because it's kind of like lost its value, I suppose, because I'm like, she's married now. she's got all the coats,
It's true.
she doesn't need that coat. But like then I was like, oh, it'd still be nice to get the coat back. And like a lot of the stuff with like Melanoe, I was like, yeah, this is all planned, and she's a huge part of the ending. So it was good to finally be like, here she is,
Mhm, mhm.
Melanoe, doing the stuff.
When Hades was having that dream, back in the day, I don't know what season
Hmm.
this is now, but when
Me
Persephone took
neither.
the first sleep dive, right? And
Hmm.
she saw them in the coffee shop, and it
Oh yes,
was that baby Macaria? Was that
yes,
baby? Okay.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
good.
I think like with the babies, I was like, oh, I think I'd rather have it be like a way in the future thing rather than like a right away at the end of the story. Because I did think it would be nice to have them at the end of the story because like for Hades, like obviously like his anxiety about like, having a family and stuff is like a big deal for him. It's like been brought up several times and I'm like, oh, I don't entirely know how to handle this in the sense that like I don't necessarily it's tricky because I'm like I think motherhood's really important and I think that is worth a discussion in like the stories that we interact with,
Mhm.
but also it's tricky in the sense because a lot of stories do end up with like the main character being like, and then she was a mother, the end, and that's all she did. But I'm like, but motherhood's still important, and it may not necessarily be for everyone. So it was definitely a hard line to walk. Where
Mhm.
I was like, I think it makes sense to have this be like a far off in the future thing, where like they've done their stuff. Persephone's got her law degree, she's lived life, and they got their own way of making a family with her carrying around that fire, and I love the mental image of her just like living for 9 months on fire and being like, yeah, this is fine, everything's great. I'm sure that's what pregnancy feels
Right?
like. But I was like, oh, it'd be interesting to like incorporate that into the story like that. So yeah, I'm glad I left it as a later thing and not like a right away thing. Yeah.
Right. It was like
Yeah.
many, many years later.
Many, many, many years later.
They
Hundreds and hundreds of years. Yes.
lived for a long time, so yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it was also really cool to see Gaia say
Mm.
like you're gonna spend this time in the mortal realm and then this time in the one underworld, and then there's a celebration about it. I mean, what made you decide that like Gaia is gonna be the one?
Yeah, I think it made sense to have her be like, this is how, it was sorted out, this is how it's going to be, kind of thing, just so there's no uh, fights about where she should be, just because like the mechanics of the story, the original story has changed. So I was like, oh, they still kind of need to have that switcheroo long distance romance thing going on, but maybe it just needs to be slightly different where like Gaia makes the call and no one can really argue with Gaia. I wouldn't argue with her.
I wouldn't either.
And no, she's just like, it's done and dusted. And I think, it's interesting because they've already been through so many separations throughout the story. And she's like, just like scoot over there. It's not like that high stakes. Don't worry about it. It'll be like a whole thing. It's fine. So yeah, I just thought it was like a nice soft thing to do. Because I've done a lot of mean things to my characters. I've really, really given them like the really tortured them this for many, many years, and I'm like, I'm just gonna give them a soft little bit here. I feel like it makes sense. Yeah.
They were so used to the torture that they were like, "We
Mhm.
see each other, bye."
Mhm. Mhm.
Yep, they were crying about it. So I'm curious, now that you have received, this is like an interesting like side note question.
Okay.
You've gotten your Eisners and your Ringo and your
Mhm.
Ruby. Do you keep those
Mhm.
in places where you can see them all the time? Or do you like put them off to the side and just like know that in your heart you have them?
I can see my Eisners and my Ringos. No, sorry, my Harveys. One of those Harveys is at large. I don't know where he is. There's a third one. When I was in New York, it was really busy, and I also was like exhausted. Um, I love to go overseas, but also I get really tired very quickly. So I'm like, what's going on? And I kind of just get pushed around from like point A to point B and pray that everything turns out. I don't have any stamina. I've got none. And I'm also, I suffer from jet lag so badly because I'm basically like this princess in the pea bitch who needs like everything to be perfect and exactly how it should be. And it's just not going to happen when you're in like a hotel room. And I've tried everything. I've tried like sleeping pills. I've tried, I mean, just sleeping pill, and all the stuff that you can do to avoid jet lag. And as soon as I get overseas, I sleep probably like maybe 2 hours every night, and then I work like these really long days overseas. So if anyone out there has ever met me in America and they thought, wow, Rachel looks really weird and looks really tired, that's why, because I sleep probably an hour to 2 hours. And and oh, sorry, this is a very long segue. But yes, one of the a couple of times they were like, "Can you please take your Harvey Award?" When I was in at New York Comic Con, and I was like, "I don't have a bag for it right now, sorry," and I don't know where it is now. And I apologize to everyone involved. It's me. I'm the problem. Um, the Eisners I've got, I broke one of them by mistake because they twirl around like the world. There's like a world with a loop and you can twirl them, but not too much or that world will fall out. So I've stuck one together. I'm sorry. Also, and the ringer, it's funny you asked me about it today because they actually sent me an email where they were like, we forgot to send yours, so that one's also at large. But I'll get it soon. I understand how these things fall on the back burner. This is a judgment-free zone.
It's
It's
true. It is.
fine. I keep them in my office and I have them on a shelf. Yeah.
That's nice. Because I feel like that Harvey that you can't find, I feel like the webtoon offices have them or something at this point.
Yeah, they were like, it's on the way. So I'm like, I don't know. I feel like maybe it's not, and it might be like chilling out at some depot somewhere. But in my heart, it's here.
Yes. In your
In my
heart,
heart.
you
Yeah. It's fine. I know I got three. I know.
I'm curious to know what you've been kind of inspired by lately, or even just relaxing with, like in terms of books or movies or TV shows. Have you been watching like reality TV? What have you been doing? Because I feel like you must be in a decompression time.
Yes. I feel like I have to write a whole blog post dedicated to like all the different media that I consumed to get to this point. Because I'm like one of those people who needs like a TV show or something like a podcast in the background, or I'm like, I just can't work. I'm sorry. I don't know if you've seen, but there's a meme of Thelma from Scooby-Doo, and she's like doing the bit where she's like, my glasses, I can't see without my glasses, but instead it's just like video essays. And she's like, my video essays, I can't draw without my video essays. And I'm like, it's so true. That is how I feel all the time. But I think, oh God, what am I reading right now? I just finished The Familiar, which is a book about, I think it's like, oh God, was it? It's like historical fiction. So it's set during in Madrid during the Spanish Inquisition. And it's about a woman who has like light powers, like not super duper. I mean, oh, I don't want to spoil it. I won't spoil it because some people might be waiting to read The Familiar. It's quite a good book, but I really like that. And it's basically about a woman who's got some special powers and she's kind of trying to conceal the fact that she has special powers because it's the Spanish Inquisition. So, it's dicey.
Hmm.
So that was quite good. God, I got into like a bit of a reading slump at the start of the year because I read two really depressing books back to back. And then I was like, what is life? I don't know what to do. But I no one judge me for what I read. I sometimes I don't like saying because people will be like, you read that, and I'm like, it's not a cosign, I just read everything. But I'm reading Fake Mate, which is a Omegaverse, there's the wolf thing with the wolf. So it's a story about two like modern magic. Oh God, what is it? Modernized, normalized magic kind of setting. where like the concept of werewolves is normal and some people are werewolves and some people aren't. But like these two characters to pretend to be dating to get out of things that they don't want to do. So that's pretty cute. That's a cute book that I'm reading right now.
Is it
Um,
is that young adult?
I believe it is adult adult.
It's adult
One
adult.
of those one of those romance books
Full
for adults. And if you're young, don't read that book. I didn't recommend it. Don't come at me. God, I started watching that TV show. I think it's called Dirk Gently, which is like a spin-off of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And I think it started in 2008, but it's kind of like it's got a lot of American actors and it's got like Elijah Wood in it, and it feels very like a but you can tell when something was originally British. I'm
Mhm.
like, I can feel the British because it's so silly, but it's also so violent. So I've been doing that. Um, and yeah, that's kind of, I've started playing Baldur's Gate. It's
Mhm.
really hard. I'm like, I don't know anything about D&D, but I'll learn to play this game that everyone else is playing. And finally, there is a fruit game, which is like Tetris, but it's just melons that come down, and it's very calming.
Mhm.
And other than that, I'm just cleaning my house.
And going through your massive to-do list.
Deep clean my house. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
I Josh plays Baldur's Gate, I'm pretty sure. I don't know.
Mhm.
I think he's playing Diablo. He was playing a video game today, even that I was like, I don't know what
Mhm.
that is, but it was look too hard for me. I'm gonna play Stardew Valley some more.
Oh
And
yes, oh, the valley's so good.
I love it so much. They just did a new update. Um,
Mhm.
oh, I restarted it and
Mhm.
I'm playing as Persephone.
Oh,
So my character's name is Persephone, and
nice.
she has this really cute, like Greek inspired outfit that I found in the game. It's very
Oh,
rare, and I found it in my play as Persephone. So I've been enjoying that. And then have you seen the show One Day on Netflix? It's a British show.
yes.
It
Yes.
broke. I don't want to say anything, but that ending, whoa.
I was like, why did you do this to me? No, it's so good. Sorry. We shouldn't discuss it for people because
Yeah.
it really just hits you like a train and you're like,
People should know
why?
that it will hit you like a train for some reason once you get towards the end. They should know walking into
It
it
was
because
good.
not
It's a
knowing makes
good,
it worse.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that show
It
is
needs,
really great. Yeah.
yeah, I enjoyed that too. I binged it over 2 days. I
Me
was like, it
too.
was so
Same
good.
exact
Yeah, yeah.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Binged it over 2 days. Really enjoyed the different years. The actors were
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal. I just
Mm-hmm.
immersed myself in their love story.
I thought it was really good because I love stuff that shows that like your 20s suck. Like there's a lot of stuff that makes it look like your 20s are like the it year and you're gonna have like an awesome job in your 20s. And I'm like, you're not gonna have an awesome job. I mean you might, but it's really hard to have an awesome job in your 20s.
Yep.
And it just like especially when you leave university and you just like, oh, I went and paid all this money and spent all this time studying to, you know, constantly hunt for work and do these jobs that I don't like that much. So I enjoyed that aspect a lot. And yeah, the acting was really good. Mm,
I agree with that. And they had so much chemistry.
they did.
Yeah, I agree. It was when I turned 30 that I was able to start getting any kind of traction in the industry, though I wanted to be there in my 20s. I could not figure a
Hmm.
way out, like, or way in
Hmm.
to break
Hmm.
in until I was in my
It's
30s.
hard to know until you get there. It's so hard to know. Like if someone was like, "How do I get into the book industry now?" I'd be like, "I don't know. I don't know how I got in here. It's so weird and hard. So like you gotta do this, and you've got to get an agent, and like you don't know what type of work to make, and it's such a mystery. It's very difficult."
Hmm.
Oh.
No,
Hmm.
I fully agree with that. So yeah, that's what I've been watching. And then reading, read, there's my favorite YA author is Holly Black, and I read the
Ah.
series. And then now
Mm-hmm.
I'm reading like there's more in that world with characters who were
Mm-hmm.
children in the first books and now they're teens and they're falling in love. So I'm I
Mm-hmm.
love that book and it's really good.
I met Holly Black in the most embarrassing way because we were on the same panel, and if I'm on a panel, what I'll do is I'll often research everyone on the panel because like I want to be respectful and be like, hey, what's up, kind of thing to the people on the panel. But like I saw that I was gonna be on with like Holly Black, and I was like, "Hello, Holly Black." And I went to her website because I was also researching what website should look like, and there was like a photo of her on her website, so I knew what she looked like.
Mhm.
And then when we were at the convention and she came into the convention and I did this, I just waved and she was like, and I was like, you don't know who I am at all. And I absolutely know who you are. But then she was like, when we were like, hi, blah, 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 she was like, oh, I know who you are. And I was like, this is great. I very much embarrassed myself to this woman whose writing I really like. So that's cool. This is going great. This is a great convention. But, you know, whatever. It's cool. It's fine. Please.
I would do the same thing. I know what she looks like
Hmm.
as well because she just put
Hmm.
out a Kickstarter for the Cruel Prince series is going to have these little playing decks. She made a game based on the characters. Hit her goal immediately. Like
Oh
200,
my
last time I checked,
God.
it was $250,000 out of $60,000 goal.
I need
And
to get back to that series. I read like the first two books and I need to. I really like the first one. I'm sorry, spoilers for anyone who's listening.
skip ahead if you
Okay, yeah.
want to read the Cruel
But I
Prince.
really like the bit where she kicks her sister's butt like hard out in the first book. I was like, yes, fight, sisters. Because like I have a sister and I totally understand sister fight. Like people don't imagine sisters beating the crap out of each other, but we do.
Hmm? And these
Probably worse
are twin
than boys.
sisters. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
No,
It's
so
so
good.
good.
I
Yes.
love the enemies to lovers since I recently reread the first two so I could get back into it. But the chemistry between Jude and Carden is so
Yeah.
palpable and it's so full of hatred that I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed that.
Chef's kiss. No, it's great because I feel like sometimes people don't understand enemies to lovers. And I blame Anastasia because of Dimitri and Anastasia because they kind of like fight. But I'm like, no, that's not the same. I'm like, they are doing light bantering. I want to see like shame, humiliation, disgust. It makes it all great. That's what we want out of enemies to lovers. Because that was very good. I was like, this is probably like my favorite enemies to lovers situation where they're so grossed out by each other, but they really like, yeah, there is the chemistry there. So it's good book.
Oh my
Thanks,
God.
Holly Black,
Thank you, Holly Black.
wherever you are. Yes, thank
She's like
you.
one of my top two authors at this time in my
Hmm.
life. She's up there. I
Hmm.
love her books and I am obsessed with the series now too. I'm reading The Prisoner's Throne. That's what I'm on right now.
Hmm.
It's really good.
Hmm.
Oh, that's so good. I'm so that story of you meeting her sounds like something I would do. Because at this point, I feel like she and I know each other.
Yeah, and you're like, I don't know you at all. I'm so sorry, Holly Black. Oh God. Oh.
That's something I do here, like living in Los Angeles. You run into people that you admire from time to time without knowing they're going to be at the restaurant that you're going to.
Yeah.
Like there's an author named Nicola Yoon who is
Hmm.
Jamaican like me, and I know what she looks like and what her family looks like from her Instagram. And they were all at a restaurant right across the street from where my apartment is. And I'm
Yeah.
gonna do this in a way where like I know she doesn't know me, but I was just like, love your books. And then her husband was there,
Hmm.
like, love your books too. And then I just kept booking. I just kept walking. I didn't want to like have a conversation, but I also need you to know that you guys are incredible.
It's hard to know what to do with like, 'cause we don't, obviously, I don't see that many celebrities in New Zealand. I've seen like Stephen Fry
Mhm.
one time when I was at the nice supermarket. We have a nice supermarket. And I was there with Jim Yoshioka. We were there at the nice supermarket. And he was buying cheeses. And I was like, it's Stephen Fry. Is that Stephen Fry? She's like, yeah. And I was like, should we go say hello? And she was like, no, leave them alone. And I was like, oh, okay. And then sorry, Jim, got to meet him at her job later on. And I was like,
Did she
cool.
bring up that she met him at the supermarket?
I don't know. I think they had just the ships passing in the night, sort of a greeting. And who else? There was like Jermaine Clement from Slide the. People probably know him more as like the crab from Moana that sings Shiny, but I saw him also at the fancy supermarket because obviously that's where all the celebrities go. And I was so starstruck
Mhm.
that I bought the wrong type of milk. I bought like lactose free milk and it was like absolutely, like normally I either get green milk or blue milk, but I got purple milk, and I was like, "Why on earth have possessed you to get purple milk with no lactose in it?" And I was just so overcome with his presence because he's so tall, and I was like, "So tall, oh!" And I was like, "You need to get out of here." So yes, that's what happened. My
You
one
left
celebrity sighting.
and purchased the wrong item.
Well, wrong item. No game at all.
That's endearing. Like when we meet people, we're just gonna be real and we're gonna be a little
Yeah.
silly about it. It's
hmm
okay. I think that's fine.
hmm
We're not gonna intrude. We're just
No.
gonna be, yeah. I have two more questions, I think.
Okay.
Okay. So the second to last question is the pressure. I know you were under lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of pressure, like immense pressure throughout this journey. Do you feel now that you've kind of said, okay, we submitted this last episode, has the pressure lifted? Is it more? Is it less? How does that feel?
That's a good question. It definitely was a lot of pressure, that's for sure. Like every week I'd be like, I don't know, because this isn't like a whole truth, but the spirit of this statement is kind of true in the sense that like you're only as good as your last episode sort of thing. And it's not necessarily true across the board, but if you write an episode that doesn't capture people's imaginations, like they're probably going to bail out. So just in terms of like, I think making a webtoon is a little similar. Like it's not the same, but there's a lot of parallels to like running a YouTube channel where it's like you do kind of have to pay attention to those numbers, and that kind of stuff can just drive you nuts because you're just like, I don't know what is the correct thing to do. And I think particularly in the final, probably like when I came back from hiatus, I basically did myself a solid in terms of sanity. And I was like, I'm just going to not really engage online at all. Like, I'm just going to take a break. Um, and only do like kind of like the bare minimum. Like, and this is like a lot easier to do in the past, especially in the earlier days. Like, I certainly am not like going to hang my hat on like every single piece of feedback that I've received because that would not land to be a good story because it would be all over the place. But I definitely would like to like do a scan to be like, how well was that received? Do people understand it? Do they not understand it? Like, what needs to be adjusted to get these particular themes to hit home? Like, and I used to be able to do that, but I think as time goes by, there is like, and since the viewership is so large, there's just such a vast amount of varying types of feedback where I'm like, I don't know which of these is correct. So I was like, I think I was going to drive myself crazy. So I was like, just live in your own head for a little while and do what you think is correct. And I think that was like a good way to go. And in some ways, it was kind of lonely because, I'm sorry, the trash is being taken out on my street. I don't know if you can hear that. But for me, I was like, in my heart, I was like, I know what to do and, just trust my own instincts. And again, it was sort of lonely because normally it's nice to post something and share it, and people are like, oh, ta 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 every week. But I was like, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to focus on doing the work and getting it out there and doing it to like what I think is correct at this point. So I think, yeah, pressure's tough. Pressure's tough. Endings are hard. It's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, or it's up there anyway. It's not like being a doctor or a nurse hard, of course, but like writing an ending that's like you feel is going to uh people are gonna like is very difficult. Um, like especially because I in general don't like endings in TV shows, and it's not that I think that they're bad, but I think writing a really good ending is actually very difficult. And I think like you think about all the series that you've like watched or read, right? And like how much discourse there always is around the ending of things.
Mhm.
Like it's very hard to write a good ending. But I feel in my heart that I personally am proud of myself, and I think that's a really important thing to do when you're writing something is like you have to agree with it. because if you make something and you just did it because you thought it was something that you were supposed to do, and then people don't like it, I think that's the hardest thing. Like it's easier to make something that you agree with that people don't like, and then you can be like, well, at least I agreed with it, and you can not live in regret and be like, oh, I wish I'd done what I wanted to do. You know what I mean? But
Exactly.
yes, it was very hard to make the ending. Yes,
Mm,
especially because you can't like do any more plot lines. It's like no more.
it's done.
Work with what you've got.
Funny, what you were talking about made me think of I went to this writing lab and there was this TV writer who had written for so many years on so many different shows. And she said something that I feel like you'll agree with because it reminded me of what you were saying. She said
Hmm.
that writing is a tantrum of taste. It is like, I like that. I love that. I'm moving in this direction because I care about it. Like, that sounds like that's where you went back to. It's like, well, at least
Hmm.
I like this. That's where you started.
Yeah,
Like, no viewers or no readers at all.
yeah, no, I think that's very true. And I think if you're ever writing and you kind of feel like at a loss for like, when you're in that place where you're like stuck and you're like, what would people like? Like you're kind of trying to make a decision about what a character would do and how, that's going to be received by a viewership. Always go and read reviews of books that you really like because then it really shows you like how people's tastes differ and how it is impossible to cater to every taste. Because if you look at reviews for books that you like, more often than not, they'll have like a really bad review. And you'll be like, how can you think that? And it really just tells you that there's just no way to like cater to every single human being. And it's just better. Like, obviously, it is very much a push and pull between like wanting to entertain people. That's very important. But also making sure that you make good judgment calls for yourself as a writer. I think a little while ago, sorry to take this on a tangent, but I caught like a bit of a YouTube video that was basically comparing like Wish by Disney with the latest Miyazaki animated film, and they were saying how Miyazaki just animates what he wants to do. I mean, this is in a positive way, but Wish is kind of catering to its audience, and I keep thinking about that as a creator and being like, how much do we want to think about like the artistic side in the sense that like when you write something, you're inviting someone into your brain, kind of, or a story you've written to experience, and that's the art of it, I suppose, as opposed to commercially making sure that people will be entertained by the thing that you've made. And those two points are always, at odds with each other, I think. I
Mhm.
don't know the answer yet because obviously you're a writer too, so you can't just be completely like, I just want to do exactly what I want to do, and everyone else can go play on the highway because that's not how the industry works. So you need
Right.
to make sure, like, you need people to like participate in it, and like, of course, people are going to watch a Miyazaki film because he makes beautiful stuff,
Mhm.
that take years to make.
Mhm.
Anyway, I'm not sure where I'm going with that. It's more just confusion being tossed in your general direction. Sorry.
Mhm. No, that's a good point, though. You focus on how much do you focus on the entertainment and what seems like it will be the popular answer, but you'll never know what the actual popular answer will be because, like you said, you can go on Goodreads and look at your favorite book, and I guarantee on that front page will be someone who did not like it at all.
Yeah, yeah, they'll be like trash, and you're like, no, it's my
The
perfect angel baby book.
the more popular the book is, the more like you'll see people be like, unpopular opinion, I hated this. Like that will happen to my very favorite books, even my Holly Black books. I'll be like,
Yes,
loved it. And some people do not like the enemies to lovers in that. And that's just how they feel.
yeah, and it's like you can't like you just gotta. I don't want to say do your best, but you kind of just need to be like, these are the people who are gonna read it, and some people will not like it, and you know what? That's okay.
It's okay. And then my last question is in this time, and it's okay if you're like, I have no idea, but what's next for Rachel? Like what are you focusing on next? Is it another webtoon? Is it short stories? Is it directing a movie? Is it acting? I don't know. What are you gonna do next?
Well, right now I'm just focusing on fixing me because I have not been kind to my physical body, and I need to go and fix the stuff in my body to make sure that I live to an old age and not die in like the next couple of months. So that would be good. Just like fitness and things like that. I'm also working on Rachel Smythe Presents, which is a program done through Penguin Random House, which is basically more of a support role in like creating other stories that are made under the mythology umbrella. So we'll be pushing forward with that soon. And I think for the most part, I'm just going to be taking my time.
Yes, that's very good. And I don't think people need a specific update about the animated series because I interviewed Stephanie K. Smith on the podcast and she told you as much as she can. So just hold
I
on.
need to go listen to that. That I was in deep work when I saw that come up, and I was like, I'm actually like not in a mental space to listen to this, but I can't imagine. Like, I was like, what is she gonna talk about? Because I'm not allowed to say a dang thing. So I was like, what did she?
What are y'all talking about for an hour?
I was like, what have you got besides it looks cool and we like it? Like, I had to listen to it.
Yes,
So I mean, she's so lovely. Oh,
it's
she's
so
a
funny.
lovely
Like, what
woman.
could you
Yeah.
possibly be talking about? No, it's good.
I
So
was
you're like,
like, I have literally two sentences that I'm like allowed to say about this. And I'm like, I don't know how she talked for an hour about this project.
so funny.
Oh,
Yeah, no, I just have to say, Rachel, thank you for everything you've done for me over the years. Honestly, like, let me just shower you with a few compliments that have come into my head while I was talking to you. First of all, I think you're so brave. You're honestly just so brave because to put your work out there to this many readers is so I just can't imagine, like, of course, I have dreams of, like, someday writing a TV show that lots of people watch, and that scares me, honestly, you know? So you put yourself out there knowing that your audience is growing and growing season after season, and I feel like you stayed true to yourself, you stayed true to your story. I think it's a beautiful story. I think you're so kind. Having been given so much spotlight, your kindness has remained since 2019, since I met you. I just think you're so incredible, and I'm so proud of you too. I felt really, really proud reading the ending, and I also felt relief for you that it did end, so that you were able to focus on other things. There was like, yeah, it was a mixture of emotions, like I'm losing something, but I'm gaining something. And so I just want to say, like, thank you from the moment you sent me a podcast microphone. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Thank you for every time you ever shared it, because that meant the world to me. And it was just something to do, especially while I was going through like a big season of like rejection and not knowing how to navigate this industry. I could go to Lore Olympus and talk about a story, which is all we do in a writer's room is talk about stories. I got to do that because you made one. So thank you for putting yourself out there and continuing to put yourself out there and being really, really brave, because it's scary to put your stories out into the world. It's a really terrifying thing. And you did so well with it. And I want you to know that.
oh, thank you so much. It's kind of you to say. I wanted to say a big thank you to you as well, because you've been so immensely supportive of me in the series throughout the year, throughout all these years. And, you've never stopped, which is amazing to me because, you know, it is kind of like a fear for me when people are like, oh, they show up. And I'm like, one day they're not going to show up anymore. But like, you showed up the whole entire time. So thank you so much. That means a lot to me. And like, it just, like when you come out to like conventions and stuff and you've been so generous with your time and also you've been so kind, which means a lot as well. It means the world to me, and I just think you and Josh are fantastic people. And I feel one of the gifts that I've gotten through making the series is getting to have friends like you in my life, which is really cool. I'm like, oh, so I'm very emotional. But yes, I just wanted to say thank you for the bottom of my heart for your support of Laura Olympus, and just, you've always been so kind. And I just think that's really special.
Yes,
Oh,
thank you. I feel the same
getting
way.
choked up.
Like, this won't be the end of our friendship. It will continue.
No, we'll keep being friends.
We will keep being
Just not
friends.
friendship over.
I know, right? And we'll keep connecting. and hopefully talking even more
Mm.
than once a year and seeing each other
Yeah,
more.
no, we can do some more stuff now because I'm free as a bird,
You're free as a
which I'm
bird.
very excited.
I will see
Also,
you
you
in
run a damn good panel. Thank you so much for the good panels that you've run for Laura Olympus because they've been the most fun ones, in my opinion.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry to everyone else who's done a panel with me, but you're just the top. I'm sorry. It's
Thank
hard
you. We
to
had a
beat.
good time. We had a great time. Like that last one, I was like,
Mhm.
that was one of my favorites. We had such a
It
great,
was great. So fun. It's
yeah.
definitely better than going out there and being Laura Olympus's ending. To
You're like,
everyone, I'm
okay,
like, no.
the
It
show's
was a
over,
good
you
room.
guys.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
All
I'll talk
right.
to you later.
Bye. Thank you so
Have a good
much.
day. Have a good day.